Hey, how's it guys? Alright, so in this tutorial, I want to cover how to use Google's official Python SDK called Google Generative AI to work with Gemini AI APIs. So the Python library is called Generative AI Python. So from one of my previous videos, I cover how to use Vertex AI SDK to work with Gemini AI models. And the reason why I want to cover how to use Google's Generative AI Python SDK is because the Vertex AI SDK for Python is recommended if an experienced machine learning or artificial intelligence engineer or data scientist who wants to programmatically automate your workflow. In summary, the Vertex AI SDK is similar to this generative AI Python client library, except that the Vertex AI SDK is a higher level and less granular compared to the generative AI SDK. And I'll link all the links in the description below. Alright, so before you can use the SDK, you need to have Python 3.9 or later version. And for this tutorial, I'll cover 3 examples, from basic to advanced examples. Alright, so let's first of all create a Python virtual environment. So launch your terminal. Alright, so let's name the environment. Let's name this as Google Python AI demo. I'm going to the folder here. Then we need to activate the environment. So cd into the virtual environment. Then activate the environment. Alright, so going back to the documentation. So to install the package, we need to run the pip install google-generative AI. So copy and paste, enter. And once we install the package, we need to obtain the API key. Now open a new tab and navigate to makersuite.google.com/app/API key. Now that takes you to the Google AI Studio. On the left-hand side, I want to, let me make that a little bit bigger. On the left-hand side, I want to click on Get API Key. And here I already created the API key, so here, let's do this. Let me delete this one here. Now, if you already have a Google project created, you can either use the existing Google Cloud project, or you can create a new project. Now here, let's create a new project. So I'm going to click on Create API Key in New Project. I'm going to copy the API key, and I'll save the API key to a notepad or something. So here, I'll create an INI file, and I'm naming the file credentials. Alright, so here I'll name the group API key. Let's name this as Google API key, and save the file. Now, there are 2 ways you can authenticate your credential. One is using the environment variable. So if you want to create an environment variable, so basically you want to name the environment variable to Google API key, then assign the API key. So what happens is Google Generative AI Python SDK is going to look for the environment variable first, which is this environment variable here. And if the Python SDK cannot locate the environment variable, then it will check manually if an API key is provided. And that's the approach that we're going to take for this exercise. Now, once we have the API key, we can now start putting together the script. Now I'm going to launch my VS Code here. Alright, so I'll create a Python script, and I'll name the script demo.py. It should demo1.py. Now open your command palette and make sure that you set the target environment to the environment that was created. So select interpreter, and the environment should be Google Python AI demo. From the import statement, let me make the font a bit bigger. Now, from the import statement, I'm going to import the config parser class from the config parser module. Then from google.generative.ai, I'm going to name the module as Gen AI. So everything we do to work with Google's AI model is based on this Gen AI module. All right, so let's go ahead and load the credential first. So I'm going to create my config parser object. Then I'm going to load the ini file. Then from the credential file, I'm going to load the API key. So from config, API key, followed by the Google API key. All right, so the first thing here we need to do is we need to attach the API key to the Generative AI module. So here from Gen AI, we need to use the configure method. And from the API key, we need to assign the API key here. Next, we need to specify which model that we want to use. Now, here let me go ahead and run this code block. So let me go ahead and attach the API key to the Gen AI module. Now, if you don't know what models are available from the Google's AI library, so from the Gen AI module, we can use the list models method. And here, let's iterate the models. So for model in Gen AI dot list models. And I'll run the method. And it's going to return all the metadata that currently the Google's Python SDK supports. Now, if we just look at one of the records, so the model record. From the model record, we have the name of the model ID, model version, display name, description, token limit, and the supported generation methods. And these three are the parameters that you can specify to control how the AI is going to respond to your prompt. Now, for the generative AI, which is what this video is about. So for all the models that supports generative AI, under the supported generation methods property, they should have the generate content value. So this is an indication that this model is a generative AI model. So if I want to know all the generative AI models, I can insert if condition. I can say if model that supported generation methods. And I want to check this key here. Generate content key is in the list. And if the condition is true, then I want to print the name of the model and the description. All right, so if I go ahead and run this loop here, I mean, it's a separator. So currently we only have two generative AI models. One is the Gemini Pro, and the other one is the Gemini Pro Vision. So this model is used usually for image creation or anything related to dealing with image or videos. First, the Gemini Pro model. This one is used for anything related to text, such as writing essays, generating different business proposals, and so on. Now, I want to use the Gemini Pro model to do something. So from the Gen AI module, we need to reference the generative model class. Then we attach the model name. Then I'll name the output as model Gemini Pro. Then I'll create a model instance. Now at this point, this object here is the model itself. So for example, here, let's say I have a prompt. I want to know the top 10, oh, not top 10, the top destination to visit in California. And here we can take the model Gemini Pro object, then reference the generate content method. Now, if you experience using the asynchronous approach, then you can use the generate content async method. And this is the method that I use if I need to generate multiple contents quickly. Obviously, generate content method should be sufficient for 80% to 90% of the use cases. Now, from the generate content method, then I'll provide the prompt. And I'll save the output as response. And I'll go ahead and run this code block. And once the output is generated, let me delete this line here. I can reference the text attribute and print the output. So by default, the output is going to return as a markdown syntax or markdown format. So if you need to return the output as something else in JSON format or just a regular text format, then you need to specify the format type in the prompt. Now let's look at another example. Now let's say your prompt is going to return a large chunk of text. So for example, here in my prompt, I want to write a project proposal why companies should start using AI in their workflow. Now, instead of waiting for the content to be generated, I want to stream the content as they are loaded. So here I'm going to create a list. I'll name the list output. So this output list is going to store the content as they are loaded. Then from the model Gemini Pro object that generate content, I'm going to provide the prompt. Then I'm going to set the stream parameter to true. Now to print the output as they are generated, we can insert a loop. So basically, if I run this code block, and if I print the response to object, now if you look at the object type, so here you notice that the object type is generate content response object. And let me check something. Response one, actually not response one, response. Okay, so they are the same object type. Anyway, now to stream the output as they are generated. So here we can simply iterating the response to object. So if I run the loop here, let me do it again. Yeah, I'll run this code block here. All right, so here's the first part, second part, third part, then the last part, which contains the remaining text. All right, so let me try something again. I want to print the object type. All right, so now mind. So when you set the string value to true, then it's going to treat us kind of like a generator, basically. And I was hoping that the object type is going to return as a generator, but I guess that's not the case here. Now going back to the first example, this one here. Now if we look at the parameters from the generate content method, I'm going to skip the safety settings property, but I want to cover this generation config property or parameter here. Now using the generation config parameter, we can control how the AI is going to respond based on the prompt that we provided. All right, so here from the, what's the parameters name? I forgot. Generation config. All right, so if we want to provide the configuration setting to the prompt, from the Gen AI object types generation config class. Now using this class, we can specify different parameters or settings. Candidate counts means that how many responses that you want to generate. So by default, the generate content method is going to return one output. But if I want to generate a variety of outputs, then you can set how many outputs that I want to generate. Stop sequence is that when you provide a prompt, you can set a list of keywords where the AI is going to stop. So for example, let's say I have two prompts. So the first request is, what are the top destinations to visit in California? But if I change these to in Chicago, And if I set the stop sequence keyword to 3 dashes, then when we supply the prompt, the model is only going to look at the prompt below the keyword here, the stop sequence keyword. Let me put that back. And max output tokens should be self-explanatory. So this is the maximum token that the API can consume. Temperature controls the creativity of the response. So the value is between 0 to 10, and it can have decimal places. If you want to have a conservative response, then you can set the value to 0. But if you want the AI to be creative, then you can set the value to 10. I'm not going to cover top P and top K value, but I'll cover how to use those two parameters in some other videos. All right, so let's go back to response 2. Make sure that I still have the object active. Now let's assume that from your request, you specify that you want to return more than one response. If you want to iterate the outputs, you need to reference the candidates attribute. And it's going to return a list. Oh, and it looks like the response is not complete. Okay, there you go. All right, so because for this one, I set the string to true, and because the response to object is going to work like a generator, so let's go back. So let me recreate the first response. All right, so from the response object, if I print the candidates attribute, that should return a list with a single element, because in this case, the default is one response. And if the response contains multiple outputs, then you will need to iterate the list to get all the possible outputs. And there's another attribute. I forgot what this one do. Parts. And I believe that parts is used when we have different types of contents. But in this case, based on my prompt, the AI model is only going to generate the text output. So from the parts output, we get a list. And from the list object, we can reference the first element. And from the element, we can reference the text attribute to get the output as well. Now, this one's I want to follow the second example. So if we set the string to true, but let's say I don't want to stream the contents. I want to return everything all at once. In that case, then from the response, you can use the resolve method and to wait until all the contents are generated. Then you can print the entire output by referencing the text attribute. Now let's cover the second example. Right, so here, let me name the file to demo2. Now for this example, let's use the Gemini provision model. All right, so here let me grab the image here. All right, so here I have a image, a Cybertruck photo image that looks like this. And for this example, I want to use Gemini Provision AI to do something with the image or to create some outputs or contents based on the image. All right, so here, let's do this. I'm simply going to grab this code block. Now, to work with images using Google Generative AI Python SDK, from the official website, the recommended method is using the Pillar library, which is an image manipulation Python module. All right, so here I'm going to insert 3 more modules: the IO module, base64 module, and from Pillar, I'm going to import the image class. Now here I'm going to create my model, and I'm going to use the Gemini provision model. Now to load the image, so first from the image class .open, we want to provide the image file path. And I'll name the object as img image. Then we need to convert the image to byte array. So first we need to create a io.bytes.io object to store the bytes string. Then we're going to pass the binary to the bytes array object. And we need to specify the format. So here, if we reference the format attribute, then it's going to return JPEG. Then we need to return the bytes array using the getValue method. And the last step is we need to encode the bytes array using the base64.b64 encode method. Then we'll supply the bytes array. And I'll name the output as encoded image data. Now to run the generate content method, so here let me paste my code snippet. We need to first of all create a dictionary. And inside the dictionary, you need to specify the MIME type. And just because you can provide either a video file or image file. And even with the image file, there's different types of image file. So here, because my image file is a JPEG file, so I'm going to set the MIME type to img JPEG. Then from encode image data, I need to decode that to UTF-8. Inside the generate content method, we need to provide another dictionary, and we need to make sure that we name the key to inline data. Then we'll provide the image blob object. Now, if I go ahead and run everything, let me terminate this session. Oops, let me go back. Now, if I run the script, so by default, because I didn't provide any prompt or any request, I simply just provide image to the generate content method. So what happens is the AI is going to load the image, then it's going to attempt to describe the image. All right, so here's the response. The Cybertruck is an oncoming electric pickup truck from Tesla. It was unveiled in November 2019 and is expected to be released in 2026, and so on. Now, if we need to do something with the image, so if we have a specific request, all right, so let me put this right here. Let me name this to prompt. Now, let's say I want to write a short, engaging blog post based on the picture, and the post should have at least 2,000 words. Now, if we want to supply a specific request, then we need to insert a list. Inside the list, the first element is going to be the prompt, and the second element is going to be the media file. And here, because the output can potentially be a pretty large value of outputs, so I'm going to set the stream to 2. Then I'm going to, let me come out these 2 lines. Actually, not this one. Let me come out these 2 lines. So I'm going to stream the text, and I'll run it. So this is some of the use cases that you can combine both prompt and media file, such as image or video file, with Gemini AI models. Now, the last example I want to show you is how we can create a chatbot using the built-in message method. All right, so here, I'm actually going to name this script app.py. And now it's the Gemini Pro AI model. Now, if I want to create a chatbot, so here let me insert the code snippet. So from the Gemini object, there's a method called start chat. And if we look at the object type, so the object type is returning as a chat session. So what that means is that you can use this method to store the conversation internally. But first, we need to provide a container to store the log. So using the history parameter, I'm going to start a new conversation. So here I'm going to provide a blank list object. Now you can also provide additional information or preloaded messages to the history to give the AI model some background on what you're trying to do, such as different examples, or you can provide any references that can be useful to your prompts. Now for this chatbot, I simply just want to use the AI model to help me to learn Google Cloud Platform. So let me go ahead and run this code block manually. Oops. Now, to return the response, from the conversation object, we can reference the history attribute. And if I print the history attribute, it's going to return the conversation log. And each record is going to contain the text and the role. So this is going to be the first record, and this is going to be the second record. So coming from the AI model itself. And if I print line 14, it's going to return model because the last message is generated by the Gemini AI model. And to print the text, so from each element, notice that here we have this parts followed by the text attribute. So we can basically reference the last element from the conversation.history list. And again, because you can potentially have more than one response. So that's why here I'm iterating the parts output. And if I run the loop here, it's going to return the response generated by the AI. Now, if you need to ask a follow-up question, so basically we'll just take this method and run another send message method. So you can say, what are the 10 GCP products? And from the last message, so we have several different groups: compute engine, app engine, cloud storage, and a couple others. And to package this into a fully functional script, so basically you will just convert this into a while loop to continuing to wait for the inputs from the users. All right, I want to show you one more example, and this one's optional, but this one is going to be a little bit more advanced example. So here, I'll name this to app2.py. All right, so here I'm going to load the libraries. Then I'm going to create a method to initialize the model. Now, for this example, I'm going to show a different way to create a chatbot. All right, so whenever we send a message or we provide a message, we need to provide the prompt, which is the message, and the role. And here I'm setting the role default to user. And this function is going to return a dictionary with two keys, role and parts. And parts is going to be the message. Then I'm going to create another function. And I'm naming the function add model response. So here, if we look at the parameters, conversation is going to be the message log or the message history. Model is going to be the model object. And to create a chatbot, so we can simply insert a main function here. Here, I'm initializing the model. Then I'm going to create a list, and this is going to be the message log. And here I want to set the first message to be, you're an expert in writing business proposals. Can you write a 50-word summary to describe the usefulness of AI? So this is going to be my initial prompt. Then here I'm going to insert a while loop. I'm going to feed the message log to the AI model here. Then I'm going to use resolve method to load all the contents first. Then I'll append the last message to the conversation list. And remember, the response is going to be coming from the AI itself. So we need to set the role to model. Then I want to print the response. And here we're just basically running an infinity loop until the user input receives exit. Then we're going to terminate the app. Otherwise, we'll continue to add our user prompt or our user request. All right, so let me just do a demonstration or give a demo. And here I forgot to run the main method. All right, so because we are providing an initial prompt, so it's going to return something in return. Then we can ask follow-up questions. Can you make it less than 20 words? And here's the response. Then we can keep continuing until we type exit to exit out the app. So this is going to be everything I'm going to cover in this tutorial. And hopefully you guys find this video useful. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this video a like and click on the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time.